Today's video is about two possible alternatives that I've looked at for Pastebin. And the reason I had to make this video was that about a month or two back, I upload a lot of my Docker Compose YAML files to Pastebin, or I used to. And one of my files recently got flagged as spam and it was blocked. I did put an appeal in, never heard anything. Put another appeal in, never heard anything. And it just made me realize again, these centralized networks where you register and they decide whether you're going to or you're not going to. It doesn't matter. In my case, I never did anything, yet my paste was blocked. This is the problem that you actually sit with, and this is probably why many people want to look at either self-hosted alternatives or at least public shared alternatives that you can make use of anyway, and you're probably going to face less of a chance of having that sort of challenge. I mean, I don't want to find that a video that I posted a year or two ago, suddenly those pastes are no longer there. So I thought, what, I can do this myself. A Pastebin type alternative is a terribly lightweight type of thing to host. It takes up next to nothing. So I looked at a couple of alternatives, and these are sort of the two that I want to discuss now that came up the most and seemed the most popular. But first of all, just what is Pastebin or Pastebin alternatives, if you haven't used them. Pastebin itself usually is used for things like either long text or things like source code snippets or bits of source code and that sort of thing that people want to share online. Long text could even be, for example, you want to make a very long social media post. You don't have a website to put it. Your Twitter or your X or your Blue Sky is limiting you to the amount of text you can actually post. Well, you could actually paste it into something like Pastebin and then just share that link, and there is your entire text. People use it for all sorts of things. Believe me, there's lots and lots of uses for it. Interestingly enough, the two alternatives that I'm going to discuss as well, they also do file sharing on top of just text and source code sharing. So, there's even added benefits to doing it yourself. And then just looking over here as well, I did mention briefly self-hosted or public server. So you can self-host it, which is what I've done, but you can also find lots of instances of people that are sharing their self-hosted instance, and you can make use of theirs. The only downside possibly with that is that, say in 3 years' time, they shut it down. You've sort of lost those pastes, especially if there's no warning. But remember, that goes the same with any company. I mean, especially Google. We all know already, you put stuff in Google and then 2 years later, they've lost interest and they shut it down. So don't look at these types of setups as sort of any worse than anybody else. And then also private or public sharing. So generally what I do is I'm mostly sharing my stuff as public, but in a read-only access mode. In other words, anybody can view it with the link. There is also private, where literally you put a password in and somebody needs the password to view it. Both of these cater for those quite easily. I think it's MicroBin that also goes in even a step further here, where it can be fully public. In other words, anybody can even edit the paste and they can even delete the paste. I don't know how desirable that's going to be, quite honestly, but what I'll be talking about here today is really possibly more the read-only type instance, or possibly the password instance. And that is how I've configured and set mine up actually to work at the moment. And then also quite important for me, because a lot of my stuff is YAML or it's source code snippets that I'm sharing, of what's interest to me as well is also the syntax highlighting, being able to specify, show the highlighting of the different source code or whatever the case is. So that's something else that I looked at. So that's really who this video is for. If you want to share text, source code, files, that sort of thing, and you want to host it yourself, or use one of the other instances, this will give you a feeling for what MicroBin and what PrivateBin can do. So I think let's just go and have a look at the differences really between them. And I've done first of all, a very high level comparison here. And I'm going to be looking at the two apps. If you look over here on the left over here, I've got PrivateBin and I've got MicroBin. Those are the two I'll be looking at really. PrivateBin is definitely the more privacy focused one, zero knowledge by the admin. And MicroBin has got a little bit more control for the admin, and you can do things like editing of snippets and so on. That's the very, very high level view of the two. But let's just take it sort of column by column here. So as I've already indicated, for editing, PrivateBin you paste, you can't edit. MicroBin you can edit. How PrivateBin would get around this really would be, you would just copy your code, paste it into a new paste, and then just delete the old one. Obviously, you'd have to update your link if you haven't got a link redirector maybe, but that is in essence the difference there between the two. The syntax highlighting, PrivateBin's not bad, but it's got only 3 types of syntax chiefly that it highlights. I think it's plain text, just plain source code, and I think Markdown. But what's interesting with MicroBin is it's got up to 25 different types of source code that you can specify. So that's an incredible amount of flexibility, especially if you're going to be doing, Python code versus C++ versus Rust or something else. That's quite interesting. The short URL services, I never really got them to work very well, and I'm going to anyway make another video about a separate one. I don't know. There are ways of integrating and getting these to work inside. As I said, I wasn't really that successful. I wasn't too worried about it. MicroBins is a more sort of a built-in, we'll see when we get there. They use sort of a 3-word animal words, I think, to sort of shorten it, which is quite effective. Whereas PrivateBin is quite a long link that you've got. Discussions, if that's important to you, PrivateBin has got the facility when you do the upload to specify yes or no to have discussions, and basically anybody can discuss them. You just put any name in that you want to, and you can just type a comment and reply. It's nice if you want to add comments to your own paste, that sort of thing. MicroBin doesn't really have that, so you would put that into your source code, which you can edit anyway, and you could add comments there maybe if you needed to, that sort of thing. So you can sort of get around that in some ways. But like I said, you're not going to have public comments. Then storage, not really major differences here, but PrivateBin can do Amazon S3. It can do to a file type. I think it was a JSON type file. I can't remember. But anyway, file type. And of course, the different SQLs, the MySQL and MariaDB, that type of storage. And MicroBin is SQLite and JSON. So that's that really. I think the nice thing, of course, with PrivateBin is, again, it can be a proper text file, but it is an encrypted file. It's always encrypted. So it's not that you can read the file. It's just saying you can, it's one way of finding the files, I suppose. It's easier than sometimes a database. On the preview side, I just put this because it's of interest to me that with PrivateBin, you've got a preview tab. So if you've pasted your code in, especially with the syntax highlighting, you can go and look at the preview tab and just see what is it actually going to look like before you finally paste it. MicroBin, you don't have that. You put the code in, you specify what it is, it's pasted. I suppose the advantage with MicroBin is you can go and edit it again. So maybe, again, not such a train smash. Then on the public and unlisted and edits, PrivateBin, as I've already indicated, there is no edit function. So that's not even really an option. On MicroBin, yes, you have got the option for editing them. Obviously, you need the password to do it. If you've set a password, I would recommend that you do set a password, because otherwise your challenge is going to be that anybody can actually edit it. And then regarding just the updating of the projects, well, PrivateBin is fairly solid. It's updated fairly regularly, and it's got pretty good support and so on. There's some issues around MicroBin. Mainly, there's a lot of interest in it and a lot of activity. The developer has been, I think, studying or something, and he's just indicated he's going to be updating it when he gets time and that sort of thing. And that hasn't been that regularly. So some people have forked it. I've in the end managed to work around a couple of oddities and issues. So I'm going to say it's perfectly usable and workable. I was worried in the beginning that it wasn't. But as I said, I will go into some of those issues here. And then just to sort of summarize here, both of these that I'm talking about here, they do have things like expiry. You can set something to expire in an hour or 24 hours or a week or a day or whatever the case is, and then it'll self-delete. You can set it to burn. In other words, if it's been read one time or 2 or 5 or however many times you specify, then it burns and deletes itself. They both do file uploads. I haven't enabled it in PrivateBin, and I forget what the reason was now. Oh, the reason why was because with PrivateBin, and that's also one of the reasons why I'm not really using PrivateBin as my primary one. If I'm hosting PrivateBin, anybody can just go and create new pastes. They could upload 20 megabyte files, all that sort of thing. So you know what, that's to me, it's great if you want to host something with zero knowledge and just let anybody use it. But in my case, I want to use it for my own use, and I don't really want everybody just uploading files to it. So for that reason, I've got file uploads disabled on my PrivateBin, but you can enable it as with MicroBin and disable for MicroBin. They've both got QR code sharing. So if you're viewing the paste, there's a button you click on for QR code, and then you can scan it on a mobile phone or whatever. They've both got some theming, and they've both got server-side encryption. I should just say on that point though that MicroBin has got the option if it's public, or if it is, there's a private but not read only, I think it is. It can actually be in clear text. It can be. You don't have to use that. As I said, if you go into read only mode or private mode or whatever the case is, it is fully encrypted. PrivateBin is always encrypted. So just to say that, you know, on both sides they're quite secure. The difference is, I suppose, with PrivateBin, you're always going to know it's encrypted. So that's that one. We can just dig a little bit further then, I think, into sort of more the upload and edit permissions specifically. So again, I've got the two apps over here. Can you see a public listing of the pastes? Well, with PrivateBin, no, you can see nothing. If you've lost, for example, your link, you're not even going to find that link again. So, you know, you've lost it, you've lost it. There's no place to see or list them. With MicroBin, there is, but only for the public files, and I forget what the other category is, but those two you can see publicly. The others, like read-only and private and encrypted and whatever the other, or secret, I think it is, no, you're not going to see them listed. But you've got the ability to have some listing. On public restrictions to access, in other words, well, obviously with PrivateBin there's no listing, but you can also set an optional password to view, and then the person would need the password to view it. For MicroBin, anybody can view, and they can also edit or remove if it's public type sharing. This is the public type sharing, and that's actually a bit of an issue and a bit of a risk. Like I said, people can just delete your pastes. The read-only edits, which is to me a little bit more interesting, like I said, PrivateBin doesn't do that, but on MicroBin, I would suggest that you always set a password on the upload so that a password is required for the editing, and then this actually works very nicely. This is an interesting one. Can you remove a read-only? Well, I did say there with PrivateBin, the admin can if the URL is known. So if that shared link is known and somebody makes a complaint about it, you won't be able to read the link. Well, obviously, if you've got the link and it's not password protected, you could click on it and view it. But you can find it physically on the file system and just delete that directory where the files are created. So it is possible. Now, MicroBin actually had a bug. What actually happens here is if you go in by default and you've set a paste and you now want to go and delete it, you can put the password in. It's just not going to delete. It's going to say to you incorrect password. And I've said but, because I've actually found a workaround here, which I've shared on the project as well. This is something that is going to be addressed and fixed, but with the workaround, you'll find it's still fairly easy to do so. So just take note, it is possible to remove a read-only MicroBin paste. And can anybody upload? Well, as I said, yes on PrivateBin, and that's not a great feature for me, maybe, for my purposes. With MicroBin, no, you can set a password, and then they must have that password to upload. And then, of course, just lastly, the admin zero knowledge. Well, yes, on PrivateBin, absolutely. It's fully encrypted. If there's a password set, you're never going to see what's actually in that paste or in that file that is shared. That's the one. And MicroBin, I have said there, well, if it is public or read-only, no, there is not zero knowledge there. It can be seen by the admin. But if it's a private or secret type paste or file share, yes, there is actually zero knowledge. You can't see what's in it or anything. So I think that really sort of summarizes them, hopefully. And then, yes, the workaround, delete the read-only for MicroBin. It's actually quite simple, really. And I can demonstrate it just now when we go in to have a look at MicroBin. In essence, after you've created your paste, the steps are you go back to edit that paste and you put the password into edit, not remove now, edit. Then you just highlight the content that's in the paste and you delete that content. Just remove it, delete it, save it. And then if you go back to the menu, you can now click remove paste, put the password in, and it will remove it, even if it's got an attachment. The important thing is it seems to be breaking that whole thing is if there's any existing content, it seems to be resisting the removal. So that was really the workaround in a nutshell. And then just to show you the sort of syntax highlighting side by side here, on the left here we have PrivateBin, and on the right we have got MicroBin. And this was YAML files, I think. Yes, it's YAML files. So you'll just notice that on the PrivateBin, quite a few of the keywords here are like not really highlighted over here. Yet, if you look at the MicroBin side, it is quite accurately identifying, you know, between keywords and values and that sort of thing quite nicely there, actually. So it's exactly the same sort of code here that I've pasted into both. So you'll just see that just gives you a good idea. If that's important to you, you can sort of see that. And then lastly, before we go look at the apps, the Docker Compose files, I'll put the links as usual below the video, and they will be shared on MicroBin actually, because I'll probably be shutting my PrivateBin down after the video. Just on the MicroBin side, just to mention there, it's a complex environment variables file. It's all in plain English, but the terms or how stuff is described, like the word read-only is used in two different contexts, and it's confusing as to which one means what. And a lot of people have been tripped up trying to diagnose problems and then just realizing that, you know what, the description is just very bad. And that's why they've been misdiagnosing what they're trying to fix. So in my Docker Compose file for MicroBin, I have actually added additional comments there, trying to highlight the differences a bit better. So if you are struggling to understand things, have a look at my Docker Compose file. It might shed some light on it. And then just regarding the admin side of it, you do need to go into whatever your domain name is /admin to access the admin component, because there isn't a link. It's not very clear. You know, if you're just going into MicroBin, you're not going to figure out how to actually get to the admin sort of view. And we'll have a look at that shortly. Then on PrivateBin, it's actually simpler. It uses a simpler conf.php file, which you basically just, well, it's not installed by default. So you've got to go to the GitHub project code, find the conf.php file, and then copy that down to wherever you have mapped your volume data, you know, your config data for your container. And again, in my Docker Compose, it shows you that. But note then, I have included an extra volume mapping for this config, this conf.php, because it is located in a different place in the inside of the container. So I had to map that out to a volume on my server so that I could put the conf.php file there, that it could be read and be used. So again, that is all sort of shown in the Docker Compose file, but by default, it's not there. So it could puzzle a couple of people, you know, when you're initially trying to set it up and you're wondering how do you edit this conf.php file. And the difference here again with PrivateBin is there's not much interaction on the actual GUI interface. You've got a couple of admin scripts that you'll run from the command line interface, sort of a cleanup script and a remove the burnt files script and that sort of thing really, and you know, to check status and so on and so forth. So whereas much of it is on the GUI interface with MicroBin again. So that really is sort of the differences between the two. And I think we can just now go and have a look at the actual two, and it'll maybe all become a little bit clearer. So if we start here with PrivateBin, you can again see the icon up at the top left there. You'll see we'll start here basically with a new paste, and we're in the editor already. And this is really the whole interface as you see it. There's no menus or settings or anything else. And I think I must just put a bit of code in here that we can work with. I'll just use a bit of YAML code. So basically you paste it in as you've got it, and you'll see you've got the preview option there first of all. So that would be the default. And you could go up here where it's got format the source code, and you could go there plain text. You know, if it's text document or email or something like that, well, then you're going to use plain text anyway. That was the source code option. And then there is the markdown option. Obviously that's throwing it out because this is now not markdown. I can try to find a piece of markdown to stick in here as well. But those are really the only options that you've got. So there's only a generic source code that it's supposed to sort of self-detect. Then the other important part that you've really got apart from this is you can set an expiry. Now generally for my ones, I'm going to set never, because people are going to watch my video and, well, hopefully they're going to watch it in 5 years' time. I find, just as a matter of interest, I don't know if you all know, but about 93.4% of all my viewership that I have is brand new first-time viewers. They find it by searching for my videos. Not many of you actually subscribe and sort of follow every single video. My videos are really more reference videos. So I find that, you know, videos that are a year or 2 or 3 old are just as busy or busier sometimes than my videos that I've just posted a month ago. So in my case, I'd obviously use never, but there may be reasons for you here to set expiry shorter. You can tick on or off there, burn after reading, and you'll see, oh, sorry, you can just see on PrivateBin, there's only an option really here for burn after reading. That's it. There's no number of times read. You can tick on or off a discussion. I'll just leave discussion on for the moment. You can set a password here, And that will be to actually access and read it. So don't set a password if it's just going to be fire and forget. And then you'd basically click create. Oh, you've got languages as well. And that is really it as far as PrivateBin is concerned. So if I say now create, you'll see there is my paste link, and we can just copy that. And you can also now, it will use the default emailer on your system. So if you've got Thunderbird installed or Gmail, that's your default, that's what it's going to send off. Here is where you'd clone it to create a new update to this if you needed to. And that's where you would actually do the QR code as well to share the link. This is where you would click the shorten URL. I don't really want to run it now. I think I was setting it up, but it might have broken or it might be working. I don't know. So yes, if I copy that and I can go up to a new tab and paste it, that will be what you would see if you were actually viewing that paste now. And of course now this is not, you're not logged in or anything. You could just say here, anyone just commenting here, and post. And that's it. There's no authentication for it. There's nothing really. So like I said, it is a little bit open to abuse. I think it's obviously a zero knowledge type hosting where the hoster just says, well, I don't know. I know nothing about it. But I should also just show before we move off this, that if you're in the reader view like we've got here at the moment, you've also got some additional options. Obviously clone, you can go create a new paste if you want to, but you can copy the raw text of the paste, or you can save the paste to a file on your, on your hard drive or whatever. So that should sort of do it. I'm just going to copy this off anyway. Hope it works. And I'm going to go to MicroBin. So MicroBin, this would typically be the landing page if you could just go to the URL of the main hosting instance. You could go to list to see if there was anything listed, but at the moment we don't have anything public, so you're not going to see anything. You've got a thing you can click up on the top left here, which will create your new paste. And you'll see now there is a select or drop file attachment because I have enabled it here, but I've got it with a password. So if I paste over here, should do it. I don't know if this formatting is right. We'll see now. There's your expiration, much the same as PrivateBin, but you'll see with burn after, it defaults to no, but you've also got options like first read, 10th read, 100, 10,000th read, and so on as well, which you can set for burning. And this is what you've got for syntax, quite a lot. So it defaults obviously to automatic. We just don't have a preview now to see actually anything. So that, as I said, doesn't help us terribly much. But I could go down here and choose YAML. Should be correctly formatted. I'm going to make this public just to show you what it looks like. And I think we don't need a password. I think we need to upload a password though. So if I say save, it says incorrect password. The only pity is it has trashed what we had inside here. So, that is a little bit of a pity. But it won't put us out, I don't think. I'm just going to say here, maybe expire in an hour. No burn. Syntax was YAML. Let's leave it at public. I'm just going to put the password in though, this time around. So let me just paste my password in there and say save. And there we go. Again, you can copy the raw text content. You can edit if you've got, well, we didn't set a password, and you can also remove it. So that's a difference that we're seeing here now. That is actually the link. And if you look on the bottom left of the screen, so that is actually the link. You can see sort of just briefly at the bottom left of the screen there, but I'm going to copy this, or we don't actually have to copy it. I'll show you why. Just see there it is saying Falcon B Gecko. That is sort of the 3-name shortener that it uses. Because this was a public link, if we go to list over here, you'll actually see there is the link that I just created, or the paste. It says it's a text type paste. If I'd have attached a file, it would have said file here. And you've got options to edit and to remove. And I think because it hasn't got a password on the upload, it might very well work for these two. But there is the link. If someone was now to, let's just open that in a new tab. that is what you would see now as a member of the public, just clicking or having received the link, which is that link up here at the top at the moment. This link probably won't work after the video because I'll be deleting it in a few seconds, but just to give you an idea. So roughly similar. The difference now would be, say, to edit. You could actually just edit over here, I think. Let me just double check. Without the password, I'll make that 3.4, save. Yes, so it was an upload only password. The other password you saw top right would have been the edit or remove password if needed. So again, as I said, because if you go to list, and you could also view this if somebody's got a MicroBin, it would be the domain name /list. We've done the edit, but anybody could, of course, just do a remove as well. And if a password is not set, it's gone. There, it's gone. So I'll show you how to do the read-only one. It's really very similar. You do a new one. I do mine as a doesn't expire. There's no limit. The syntax is going to be YAML. Let's just get some code to put in there. Okay, that looks good. YAML, I'm going to make it read-only. So now you can also see a little bit more clearly what your options are here for MicroBin. We've done the public one, no password, to edit or delete. Then unencrypted, but protected with read-only. In other words, in my case, I've set a password. You need a password to upload, and you need a password to edit or to delete. And of course, obviously fully encrypted is going to be encrypted on the drive as well. The read-only is not encrypted. The reason, like in my case, it's public stuff. It's anybody to read. I'm not worried about encrypting it on the drive at all. But if you want it encrypted as well, you would choose either private or secret. And only the public are the ones that you'll be able to view on that list of the server as well. But let's take read-only, because this is typically the one I'm going to use. Oh, I actually want to make it just expire again. And this time I'm going to put a password in both fields. So I'm going to use my same password I use. I have to set this password for the password uploader. I would suggest, this is not a password everybody knows. I would suggest also as the admin, you just use exactly the same password for the upload permissions. Otherwise, you're going to get confused and forget which password is which. You say save, and it's created that new link. Now you'll see that you can edit this file. If I go to edit, remember this was a read-only. I'm going to change that to 3.4 again. And you'll see I have to re-enter the password. So I re-enter that password. That was the password that was up here at the top right when we did the upload. And you'll see it will save. But if you try remove it, what now happens is I've got the password still on the clipboard. If I paste the correct password in and say OK, it's going to say incorrect password. Now we know that's the right password. As I said, this is a bug. So how you're going to work around this is, oh, I forgot we can't list. Remember, this is a, well, I can actually show you what the admin would do. It doesn't matter. It's exactly the same as the user because I am the admin at the moment. If you go to admin, which is your URL and just admin, this is the admin view. Log in quickly. This is sort of the admin's view. So you'll see there's a lot more information. It does give you a much fuller view of what is actually saved as pastes, even the read-onlys. Obviously, this is just status info at the top there. But here are a whole bunch of other pastes that I've already done. Some are for previous videos, you know, how long they're valid for, how much space they're taking up, whether they're encrypted or not. So these ones over here I was testing were those secret and private ones, or whatever they were called. You'll see it says they're server encrypted. These are all private and editable, and they are text, and it shows you how many hits they've had. So there's a bit of stats as well. There's more information than you're going to get out of the PrivateBin. As I said, I'm not using the URL redirects, and then it just gives you a summary of all your config settings as well. But what I want to show you was, now I've forgotten which one it was. I'll have to look by the dates here, otherwise I'm going to delete the wrong thing. Today is the 17th, yes. So it was this one that we have just put up, I hope so. So if I try remove that now, oh, there we go. So if you try to remove it, you can put in the correct password, but it's going to say to you incorrect password. So this is the workaround. You go to, well, you've got to go and edit that link first. So you can either click over there and go to edit, or you can just go straight to edit over here. What you now do is just highlight all that, remove it, enter the password again. You'll see it hasn't got a problem accepting the password to edit. And now you can just click on remove up at the top there, put your password in again and say okay. I know it's a little bit of a workaround, but it's easy and it works. There, it's gone. So that is really MicroBin then as well in a nutshell. They have got a little bit more information here, like a guide and so on, a little bit about how things work, and they've got the different, they explain the different levels there of secret, private, read-only, unlisted, and so on. So yeah, I hope that actually does help people at least sort of maybe decide between using these two and whether you want to host it yourself. As I said, I don't really want to go through breaking down the whole Docker compose files. I put quite a bit of comments inside them already to assist people, so I'd hope that helps. And then as well as the config file for the PrivateBin one. But if there are any questions or anything, just ask me. I have sort of had to try and figure out most of it already, and I'm hoping that at least the summary and the config files will sort of help explain, you know, if you get stuck with anything like that. But yeah, I think it's a nice idea being able to host yourself. Like I said, it doesn't use up a lot of resources or anything. It's the sort of thing that you can just run as one additional small service. I'm going to be doing another video, if not the following one, maybe the one after that. I also have paired this with a short link URL redirector, because specifically for PrivateBin, it was a very long link and I anyway needed something. But then I thought, you know what, why use Bitly all the time anyway? Same problem. You've got all these restrictions with it. If you host it yourself, you can actually get more out of it and have fewer sort of restrictions. And it's also incredibly lightweight. So that will just be a future video to watch out for. But I hope you did find some of it interesting, and stay safe out there, and I'll see you in my next video.